We've read 9 books this month, and I am super excited to have some new favorites. If you're watching, oh, things are falling. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. Welcome to our February wrap-up video. I can't believe that February has already come and gone. Well, technically when I'm filming this, it's the Sunday of the last week of February. February is not over yet, but it's getting there. It's crazy because January felt so long, but I feel like February felt so short. It's a leap year month, but it felt so short to me. We did end up reading 8 books, but we're gonna include my current read that I'm going to finish in the next couple of days in this as well. So we're gonna be talking about 9 books this month. I can't believe that I read 9 books this month. Like, that is so crazy to me. I don't know what has been happening, but I have just been in my reading era, getting all cozy and just like having the best time reading. We do have some romances here. We have some thrillers, some series, and it was just a good reading month. I was definitely more into romances than I usually am this month because of Valentine's Day, and now I'm back into my fantasy mood. So you could see that through the books that I'm going to show you as I go from romance gradually back down to fantasy. I have 2 5-star books this month that I loved and I am so excited to tell you about. The first book we read this month is Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series. It's a small town cowboy romance series, and I am just getting into it. It was super popular last year and I just never got around to reading them. I gave this one 5 stars. I read the entire thing in one day, and it's like almost 500 pages. It's like 470 pages. So that is a lot of pages to read in one day. For me, especially. I just genuinely could not put this book down. I was reading it like when I was eating. I was reading it when I was making food. I would try to do something else, but then I'd be like, I want to go back to reading it. I have a video on it if you want to know more about it. But it's about Cade and Willa, and it is a single dad trope small town romance. Of course, Cade is the older brother of the main character from the first Chestnut Springs book, Flawless. Willa is the best friend of the main girl character from the first Chestnut Springs book. There is an age gap in this that's decently large. It's like 13 years, but it didn't feel like that. Like, it didn't feel like icky, like that was such a large age gap, because I think Willa was in her late 20s and Cade was in his 30s, early 40s? I'm not sure. But regardless, it didn't feel icky or anything like that, and I love the romance in this. I loved Luke, who actually Willa was hired as his nanny, and that is Cade's son, and I love the little kid. He was so cute. There was a trope that not a lot of people love in here, and I won't say that because that's like the twist at the end, but I didn't mind it at all. Then, sticking with the romances, we read The Score by Elle Kennedy. I also have this book, Heartless, and the next book I'm going to talk about are all in the same video if you're curious of more in-depth thoughts of it. I really was pleasantly surprised by it. I didn't love the second book, The Mistake, and I really liked The Deal, and it took me a while to read The Score, and it took me a while to get into it. It was a little bit slow in the beginning, and like it was a lot more physically focused in the beginning, which I do not like. Like, that is the biggest thing in romance books that I hate, when it's like all physically focused and it's like there's no depth at all to the relationship, and that's how the beginning of this felt to me. But then it got a lot better as I kept reading. Third Act Conflict wasn't dumb. It makes sense based on both of their characters, how that would create the conflict. I think I gave it a 3.5. And then we read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is the first book in the Maple Hills series. Then they have Wildfire, and then Daydream, I think is the name, that's coming out next. This is about Stassi, or Anastasia, and Nate. It is a figure skater, ice hockey player romance, college romance. The figure skaters that are training for the Olympics and the hockey players, something happens to one of their like ice rinks and they're gonna have to share one, and that has like a natural conflict because they both want a lot of time on the rink. Actually, Nate is like the epitome of the perfect book boyfriend. I said this in that other video where it's like I feel like Hannah Grace literally researched what the perfect book boyfriend was and made Nate Hawkins that exact person, and that was a little bit annoying. Not annoying, but like it was a little bit, I don't know. it took me out of it a little bit because I like a morally gray main character, and Nate is the definition of a golden retriever. Sassy is a black cat. I really liked Sassy's story. She struggles with anxiety and a few other mental health things. Just seeing her go through that journey, she was an interesting character, much more interesting, I think, than Nate. But Nate was very good at like being there for Sassy when she needed it. And they also just have such good communication. Like, the communication is amazing in this book. I think I gave this a 3.75 or a 4-star. Now we're gonna move into our thrillers. I listened to both of these on audiobook on my Spotify. I have them in the physical format as well, and I just really love listening to thrillers in audiobook. That is what I've discovered. So the first one I read is The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. This I actually read because it was on my physical TBR, and I'm really trying to get through my physical TBR, but also is a Apple TV like series, and me and my boyfriend wanted to start watching it, but I wanted to read the book first. I gave this book a 3.5. It kept me engaged. I wanted to keep listening. I wanted to keep reading, and I did really like this story. It's basically about Hannah just married Owen, and Owen has a daughter, and she's 16 years old. Her name's Bailey, and she is, you know, predictably prickly to Hannah, her new stepmom. And then suddenly Owen goes missing, and the only thing that he tells Hannah is protect her. Hannah realizes that means Bailey. Hannah and Bailey are sort of unraveling the mystery of why Owen disappeared without a trace. Like, he's not the type of person that would do that. Just is a lot larger than what they think originally. And I really liked this book. I feel like them discovering the mystery of Owen's past was very fun. And then our next thriller is actually one that I DNF'd last year, but because it's on audiobook, I decided to pick it up again just to give it another chance, because it was more like a soft DNF. I knew that I wanted to keep reading it, but I just didn't want to read it at that time. So that is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Again, I listened to this on an audiobook, and that was a lot better for me. Like, getting through it with all the different voice actors and just hearing the emotion in that story made me care about it more. So it basically says, an exclusive wedding on a remote island, the bride, the +1, the best man, the wedding planner, and the bridesmaid. Those are all the POVs you get. All have a secret, all have a motive, but only one is a murderer. And you're going back present to past, where like the past is like the week leading up to the wedding and everyone getting there and exploring like the motives for why they are not too happy with someone. And then you don't figure out till the very end who the body was, and by that time you're questioning everyone. I was questioning everyone by that time. I did not figure out who did it at all, and even when I thought I did, I didn't. And it's like on a remote island. It's so very reminiscent of Agatha Christie, like And Then There Were None type thing, and I would recommend it. I gave it, I think, like a 3 stars. Our next 5-star of the month, A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This is the last book that's published right now in the ACOTAR series. I have a video on it that I will leave here, and I will go more into depth in that video. But I loved this story. I loved Nesta and Cassian's POVs. I loved how Nesta had her sort of like redemption arc and getting a glimpse into why Nesta was as prickly as she was throughout the first few books of the series. I didn't think that I would love this change in POV, but it worked, and I'm so happy that we got Nesta's POV. I also listened to the graphic audio version every now and then. Like, I would switch between physical book and then listen to the graphic audio version, which is like a full voice cast with sound effects and everything like that. It literally is like a movie in your head, and I really liked that. This book made me cry, it made me laugh. It is very spicy, I will say. It's the spiciest book of the entire series, in my opinion. So like, just be prepared for that if you pick this book up. I feel like it wasn't as long as I thought it was gonna be. Like, it didn't feel like it was 800 pages, which it is. It felt like Nessa needed to go through all of those motions to get to where she was at the end of the book. I loved the new little quest they go on. I thought that was really interesting, but I go way more into depth in that video, so go watch that if you're curious. Also in that same video, I read Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is the first book in the Caraval trilogy, the prequel to the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. I did not read Once Upon a Broken Heart yet. I've been waiting to get through Caraval, and I'm happy that I finally picked this book up. Basically, this is like a night circus, and it tells the story of Tella and Scarlett, who are 2 sisters, getting tickets to Caraval, which is a night circus, and it's a game. They get separated before they go to the island, and as the story goes on, you learn that Tella is, that's not a spoiler because it says it in the very beginning, Tella, who is one of the sisters, is the game. Like, find Tella is what everyone has to do in Caraval. So Scarlet is going through all these clues and searching for clues and going through this magical island. I feel like the way that Stephanie Garber describes it is so fairy tale and dreamy, and I really liked it, but it's always that like undertone of like sinister, which is interesting to like juxtapose that with the fairy tale magic of Caraval. I think I gave it a 3.75 or 4 stars. I am definitely gonna finish reading the rest of this trilogy. And then the next book I read is All In. This is the 3rd book in the Natural series, and we're again following the 5 teenagers that are helping the FBI solve cold cases, but they're solving like a real-time case, and they're trying to like beat the killer before he kills again, and it's like a serial murder. Jennifer Lynn Barnes is a genius. Like, I could not think, even the Inheritance games and this, I could not think of half the things that she goes into in her books. Like, I don't know how she does it. It just all is so interwoven but works out in the end, and everything makes sense. It was a very good thriller, very fast-paced. Jennifer Lynn Barnes' books are always fast-paced. You're following Cassie again, Cassie's point of view, but you find out more about Sloane and a little bit more about Michael. There's only 1 book left after this, and I think that is the book that's going to delve really deep into Cassie's mystery that she came into the Naturals program to solve. Did not know who it was whatsoever. Her mind is insane. To include the book that I am reading currently, because by the end of this month I'm gonna be finished with it. It is The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This is the 1st book in the Prison Healer trilogy. Also, I think Sarah J Maas and Lynette Noni are friends, because she dedicates this book to Sarah J Maas, and then in A Court of Silver Flames, Sarah J Maas thanks Lynette Noni. And I think that's just a cool thing when like the authors are friends of 2 series that you're reading. It's just so fun. I'm not too far along yet, but it's basically about Kiva, and she is the healer of this like death prison. Essentially, no one ever really leaves alive, and it's very brutal. She's been there for 10 years. There's a rebellion going on outside of the walls, and the rebel queen gets captured, and Kiva has to keep her alive. But I think she ends up taking on the trials that the rebel queen was going to take on for the rebellion, and that'll determine her freedom and the rebels' freedom. And it seems like a kind of like a Hunger Games type vibe, but also ACOTAR, where there's like trials that the main character has to go through. You know what I mean? It's good so far. I like it a lot. I think it's gonna be a good trilogy. It's keeping my attention. I feel like there's definitely a mystery that I have to unravel as I keep reading in some of the characters, but I'm excited to finally start this trilogy. Those were the 9 books that we read in February, all ones that were on our physical TBR. And I am so happy that we are checking these off of our physical TBR, because that has just been like my goal for the entire 2024, just decrease my physical TBR. I definitely would recommend ACOTAR. Obviously, that is like the most famous fantasy book series in the world. I would recommend really all of these books. That is going to be it from me today. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, things are falling. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.